So here we are, after our monumental discussions that we do with the pre-games and just the getting to know people. I'm just really excited. You are awesome. You are, part of what makes you so awesome is that you are very humble. So you're like humble awesome. Like I know that's like a word. But you have done so much and you continue to do so much. It's not, I think in our community and probably other places, you don't do it for the acclaim. You don't do it for the notice. You do it because it's built into you. It's part of your DNA, which is making a difference in the lives of other people, making a difference in the city of Troy. So we're going to talk about all of that. I like to kind of take it back to the beginning. And so I'm always curious to know, were you someone that was surrounded by entrepreneurs? Did you see that? And again, I know it wasn't called being an entrepreneur at that point. Talk about those impactful people when you were coming up. What did you see?
Well, first of all, thank you, Patrice.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
I've enjoyed getting to know you, and you're a special person, and we're so lucky to have you here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you very much. That's awesome.
And also, I saw my wife hiding over here. So she's trying not to make me nervous, but I want to give a special shout out to my wife, Ann, who's always been here for me and supports me in everything I do. So everything I say today, I definitely got to go home to.
Sure.
So, so thank you very much.
Sure. Very awesome. Very awesome.
And literally, I could spend the next hour going around the room saying thanks to everyone.
Sure.
So and that's kind of a little bit about who I am, but it's a great jump off, right? It's a great place to start, because I think if I go back to the beginning, at 904 Broadway in the city of Rensselaer, and it's my grandparents' grocery store, and I'm 12 years old, and I'm in the back room of the store organizing bottles. And at the end of the night, I'm stocking shelves. And I wasn't allowed to touch the adding machine or the cash register. And I definitely wasn't allowed to touch the meat slicer.
Which probably a good thing that was.
And when I was in 10th grade, I convinced my grandmother to let me touch the meat slicer, and I sliced off a piece of my pinky. Little piece, small, But my grandparents had a store for 50 years in the city of Rensselaer, and the store was more than just a corner store. My grandfather was a butcher. He had, served in World War II, came home, and like a lot of people of the great generation, built something for his family. And he built they built their store together. They worked for 50 years at this store, and they worked 365 days a year. They split shifts when it came to lunchtime and mealtime, and the store was open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. for 50 years. My whole family worked there. I never recall getting paid, and I never recall, I recall, getting some free stuff, but I also recall having to pay for things. And that's when I learned what tax was, because I would try to buy something for 99 cents. My grandfather would tell me, no, it's $1.06.
Right.
And he'd say, Tommy, it's got tax, just like the big stores, And but I learned a lot of lessons there. And I learned lessons there beyond just business. And I actually didn't really learn about business, right? I didn't learn about the finances and the books and whatever. I never recall ever seeing anyone doing books. What I knew, though, was I knew about community. Because my grandparents' store in the city of Rensselaer was old school, right? It's a place where the community gathered. Hi, Chuck. Good to see you. It's a place where the community gathered. And it was a place where people came and, every day, it was their routine. Their way home from work, they played the numbers, they picked up a six-pack, they had lunch meat orders, they had my grandfather butchered steak for them. But it was a part of the DNA of my community. And it was my neighborhood. So I lived on that block, and the 900 block of Broadway. And I always like to say to people, I'm like, listen, to this day, I got a home field advantage there. Right. It's our block, my block. Right. It's where I grew up. And I think that, my whole family grew up on that block. So it's kind of the last of the ethnic Italian, on the same block. We're sitting on the porch in the summer, listening to the Yankees on the radio. That's what life was like. And then people driving by, yo! Right. I do it to this day in Troy. Yo! I see people driving by. It's just I can't help myself. Right. I grew up like that. And But I also learned humbleness. My grandfather taught me that you say thank you to everyone. Everyone who comes through here, who leaves here, you give them thanks.
Right.
Now, he may, when they leave, go, he's a joker, but part of his thing was, and there were no politics. There were politics in the store in the back room, by the way, like any city politics, but there are no politics in the front of the store,
Right.
and it was all classes, demographic, races, everyone was at the store. And that's how I grew up. And that is my DNA. And the other thing I'll say is my grandfather, probably my first experience with death was when he died, when I was in high school. And I used to deliver groceries. So as I got older, my jobs increased. So then it was like from bottle boy to shelf stocker to, putting prices on cans.
Rising through the ranks.
Exactly. I rose up. I earned, but I had to earn every level of rising up. And then eventually let me touch the adding machine. And but I used to deliver groceries when I got my car. It's like, oh, you have a car? Great. Now you got to take this down to Miss Lithgow's house. And there were people who I used to deliver groceries to that I said, well, what do I do? Do I get money? And there were a lot of people I didn't get money.
Right.
And I just assumed, well, they just whatever. It's like credit, and they square up or something.
Sure.
And my grandfather died, and at his wake. 1,000 people, hundreds of 1,000 people. I don't even know how many people came through. And I had people come up to me. I had no idea. And they said, I just want to tell you, I want to take a moment and tell you about your grandfather. And now my grandfather was pretty coarse. He was a pretty rough guy, loved his family, but no nonsense guy. And so I heard these stories when he passed about how much he gave and how much he cared and how much he did. And he did it. And he never was like, look at what I donated. Look at what I did.
Sure.
It was never like that. And I think I earned, and I definitely got that from them. I definitely got that from my family, my grandparents.
So it sounds like clearly what you have done here in the city of Troy is create community. So again, that is something that's hardwired into you. It's something that you came up doing, even what you talked about with the front and the back. So you're never going to see in the front, in the public facing. So it's interesting, and we'll talk a little bit about Gramercy as well. But it's interesting how the class, the elegance, which maybe wouldn't even be something that you would have thought of or he would have thought of himself, but really that instilling of dignity and making sure that everyone had what they needed, but not in an ostentatious sort of a way. So you had this grounding. You clearly saw business building, business ownership at an early stage, and talk a little bit about when you went through school, you did your school things, and then when you decided to go to college. Talk about that a little bit, how that story went.
Yeah, and I think that it'll tie back into community, because I think I made a decision early on that no matter what I was going to do in my career, and I didn't know. As a kid, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I always knew I wanted to do something impactful, And then as I got older, I learned what that meant. And look, going to college was a lot of people have a similar story to me in going to college. No one in my family went to college until my aunt, who was like 3 years older than me, who, by the way, is the most successful Nardacci of all time. She's like the fifth president of Kraft Foods, pretty amazing person from Rensselaer, went to Siena. But my Aunt Lisa, she lives in Chicago. She was a real role model for me, and that I saw her do things that I didn't know you could do. And in our neighborhood, look, we didn't go to college. That wasn't a thing. People, no one, it was, it just wasn't a normal trajectory, And so I, having watched her, I made a decision in high school, right away, that as soon as I entered high school, I went to LaSalle, and I just decided right away that, look, I was going to go to college. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to go about it. My mom didn't know how to go about it. My mom just was always like, I want you to get a good education. I support you, whatever you're going to do. Sure. But she wasn't, what she wasn't doing? She wasn't doing what just happened around the country with, people buying admissions and all that stuff. That didn't exist, As a matter of fact, we filled out the financial aid papers wrong, and they came sent back, and they said, well, you're accepted, but you get no aid, and I went to the financial, and so I ended up going to Syracuse, right? And I went to Syracuse by chance, right? So this is also a part of my life, and I posted something on social media about this, and it's a little cliche, but look, I've always, my high school yearbook, I quoted the famous Robert Frost poem about the road less traveled. And for me, that decision as a 17-year-old boy, had implications for my life that I put in stone. Look, this is who I am, and everyone here can think about your high school yearbook quote, what you said, what you did, why you did it. And for me, it's just played out, right? This idea of taking a different path. So in college, I was getting guidance to go to small schools, right? I had gone to LaSalle. I was getting, my guidance counselor was like, look, you should try, look at these small schools, look at these small schools. And literally so I was like, I'm going to go visit Lemoyne in Syracuse. And I remember, I had this beater car, right? It was like an 83 Volkswagen Golf, like bumper tied up, just like spare tire on the back. I mean, wasn't a chick magnet, I'll tell you. So, and being a LaSalle boy on top of that. So I'm going to drive this car out there and actually, it was actually my girlfriend's father in high school. He's like, you can't drive that car out to Syracuse. He's like, take my car. So I'm like, all right. So I took my girlfriend's father's car to go visit colleges. I mean, think about kids today. I mean, literally on my own. So I call my best buddy and I'm like, dude, I'm going to visit Syracuse. You want to come? He's like, yeah, I'm down. So it's like road trip. Let's go. We got the fancy car. We're like, hanging out. We got a radio in it. And probably had a tape deck. So I go to visit Lemoyne. I'm like, yeah, this is all right. It reminds me of Siena. And I was like, and this is like, and I'm dating myself. I'm 44, but this is like, there's no GPS. I'm like, I think Syracuse University's around here. We should like check it out. We pulled into Syracuse. We got a car. There were like 1,000 girls on the quad. It was like 80 degrees. It was like perfect. I'm like, I'm coming here, But so that was my college, that was me figuring out college, I was like, this is what I'm talking about, They got a basketball team. And so I applied, I get into Syracuse. The financial aid forms are filled out wrong. So I was like, well, I get accepted, I can't go. So literally my grandfather, here's what comes back to him. He was like, look, you got to go out there and talk to them. I go, Pop, you don't know. What do you know about college, Pop? You can't. He's like, you got to go. He's like, go out there and explain to them, bop, bop, bop. And I'm like, all right. So my mom and I drive out to Syracuse and literally go, and it's like, there's no online. I mean, it's like we're walking around the campus. Like, what's the financial aid office? We're in all these buildings. And we go in, we sit down with the lady. She's like, oh, you filled out the form wrong. She's like, no, you're all set. She's like, you get every grant. My mom is a single mom, worked 3 jobs. You get every grant, you get everything, you get every freebie, every TAP, Pell, grant, federal student, whatever. And I was like, and at the end it was like payment 0, except for loans, So so that's how that came about.
So we talk about you took some courses, you took history and politics. That was your interest. And you really have, and because you're so, I think the people that know you well probably know, but you have had a very interesting and eclectic jump. And what really happened for you getting into college really just kind of kept happening. So some people might say, oh, you were just lucky. But I think that there was more going on there. I think you are kind of positioned for things to happen. The way you approach things, you're kind of positioned for things to happen. So you did college, you got to the college that you wanted to with the girls on the quad. You studied well. And when you were in college, what were you thinking about? Like, I'm going to get out of school. You knew you wanted to do something important. You wanted to be impactful. You wanted to make a difference. So when you were in college, you're like, okay, I'm taking these courses. And when I get out, I want to be what?
Well, so what I thought was going to happen, totally not going to happen. But so growing up, I just me and my friends, we were always these knockaround guys, right? So it was everything was the hard way. There was no easy way to do things. So we just kept doing things. I throughout my life just did things not the easy way sometimes. And sometimes it got me in trouble and sometimes I got out of trouble. And I did get lucky in that, there's the famous quote, there's no such thing as a bad boy. There's just boys who can't run as fast, And back then I was a lot faster than I am today. So I had a teacher in high school, Jack Kenyon was his name. And Jack, you know, is a special person and was a special teacher in that he was just, you walked into his class and you were equal, you know, and there's politics in high school, you know, and like, you know, and I walked into his class and I got into AP history. I was always interested in history and politics, right? So just at some point in my career, so look, I used to write letters to Governor Cuomo as a high schooler. I have a letter in my office from him that's like, thank you for talking about the state budget and about encouraging me to run for president. I'm like, who does that? What kind of geek does that, you know? But I was a geek. I was a geek in that way. So that was like the other side of growing up. Like I had this geeky side. I was interested in politics and government. My family was interested in politics and government. I saw it in the store. But I had this teacher in high school that really inspired me and gave me a shot just to be the best. I was always an underperformer in high school. I just was like, look, I'll just show up and take the test. Like I'll study tomorrow. Like I'm gonna do my homework. I never did homework. I did my homework in the morning. You know, that's the kind of student I was. I was I just was an immature. I got it. I'm smarter. I could figure it out. And I did just enough to do well enough, but I never fully applied myself. And that came back later when I went to grad school, because when I went back to grad school, I was like, I'm applying myself and I'm gonna get it all right. And I did. And so Jack, you know, inspired me. And then also too, by the way, and he had said to me, I was like, what do you think I should do in college? He's like, just take what you like. So I went, I registered, and I was like, I like history. I didn't know what that meant. You know, I just was going to be a history major. And I was like, I'm going to get a degree from Syracuse. I'm going to get a job making $80,000 a year since I graduate.
Right.
Doing what? I don't know. Someone's going to hire me, right? Because I thought no one went to college. I'm going to college. I'm going to have a step up from everyone I know because I'm the only person who went to college. Mm-hmm. I'll get a big job walking on Wall Street with a history degree. I mean, that's really my mindset back then, if I go back in time. And, you know, and I think that you know, what it taught me, though, what history and politics taught me taking. So I loved writing. I was always a good writer, you know, and I was always a good bullshitter, right? So, and
Two key skills that will take you far, especially in this city.
But taking history, I wrote and read a ton. 30-page papers, 10-page papers, you know, thought papers. Like this was every night was writing. I had this is like you kids today got it so easy. You got Macs and you got printers and stuff. I had a Brother word processor and the tape to print out. Literally, they sold it at like one bodega, like 15 blocks off campus. That's what I was printing papers on. And my roommates hated me. Like, dude, stop with the tick, 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 30 pages. Right. But I had it figured out that I could write from scratch 3 pages an hour. So like I was like, okay, I'm good. So if I had a 30-page paper, I'd start 10 hours before it was due. That's how I did it.
So you're a math major as well, sounds like.
Wow, basic math.
So that worked out for you. But what's really interesting is
it didn't work out fully. That's my big secret.
Okay, tell us more. Big reveal. Come on, let it all out.
So I told people that I was going to tell a secret that I've never told anyone. And it's my biggest failure in life. And so because I was so smooth and had it all figured out, you know, it's my biggest failing. So after all of the effort, all of the energy to get to Syracuse, go to college, what do you think happens after my first year?
Wow.
Your grades are terrible, kid. You're out of here. Ejected.
So you're saying after your first year? Okay.
I've never told that to anyone because it's such an embarrassment for me to this day. To come home after like your family was so excited, my community's excited for me.
Right.
Look at him. Look how good he is. Look how good he's doing.
Right.
So proud. And I squandered it. I just was immature. And I live with this secret. There's one person, my wife is the only person that knows this ever. You know, and it's something I'm over it. I got over it. But it was a hard lesson to learn because I come home, you know, and now I'm like, okay, what do I do? Do I just say, forget it? I'm not meant for me. I'll just go get a job, And so, it was really hard. Hudson Valley saved my life. Like, it's done so many kids and so many people that needed it. So I go to college, I come back, I spend a year there. I do well enough. I mean, I'm working at a gas station. I'm working full time at a gas station, trying to save money, going to Hudson Valley. I mean, it was a kick in the teeth. As an 18-year-old kid.
But there is something about failure. There is something about something growing, something strengthening, something stabilizing. It sucks. It doesn't feel good at all during the time. But when you look back on it, I would say that during the time that you're going through that, it doesn't feel good at all. But wouldn't you think, or would you say that it has been that experience, what you learned during that time, has really created some grounding for you and some of the successes that you're looking at now? And if so, how?
By the way, I have a master's degree from an Ivy League college, right? So, I mean, that's the end of the story, in terms of education. I mean, I had ghosts. I was chasing ghosts. I had all this on my back. And I'll never forget the first day I walked on campus at Columbia as a student.
Tell me what you mean by, what does chasing ghosts mean?
I just was always like thinking I had to do something to make up for something. Like, even as I was, I went back to grad school 10 years after I had been, an undergrad. So it was for 10 years of that time, I was like, just, trying to prove that I wasn't bad, or I was good enough,
Right.
And so, but really when I went back to grad school, got my master's, I tried to get a 4.0. I was very close. I couldn't get it, but I was very close. And that helped a lot. But I'll tell you, the one thing it taught me, here's the thing. I have failed as much as I've succeeded. Period. That's life. This is life. Life is this. Life is failing. But it's how you deal with failures that determines whether or not you're successful. And I think, and I could sit here and talk about fail. All these failings. Fail. But it's again, cliche, but you got to get up. You get up and you go. And you learn from it. You go, I'm not going to be a dummy again. I'm not going to do dumb stuff again. Right. And I think that's what I've learned more than anything. And also, too, by the way, those early failings as a young kid, it helped me fail today, not sweat it. It's going to happen.
And interestingly, with Gramercy, you are helping other people with their failures and manage them, again, not so much in the front. Things that happen in the back, you're able to really take that and to, I don't want to say fix, but to create an environment so it isn't as devastating as it might be.
Yeah, I think that's part of being a consultant and advisor. I think of myself as I'm a consigliere, right? Like, I'm someone who is an advisor and someone who people rely on. And part of that is advising them through their challenges. They're having a problem, they're having a challenge. And I think having that wherewithal that, look, for, you spent 10 years, and just if I go through decades, right? Like my 20s, what was life in my 20s, what's life in my 30s, now my 40s, what's my life? Those 20s, when I was 20, just the stuff I went through, set me up for today. There's no doubt about it. Look, moving to DC, with no job, no car, I mean, that kind of stuff.
Right.
I mean, and on the Gramercy front, if we get into that, I'd like to talk more in that, less about the crisis side of the business.
Yep, we'll circle back around.
Yeah, more about the.
Let's talk about right here and now. Let's talk about this amazing building that we're in right now, and the visionaries are folks that can, you think about sight, right? The eye. So we see things, but then there's vision that doesn't necessarily have to do with your natural vision, but it's the ability to perceive something that no one else can see, right? So here was this building that was really a blight in the community. Okay, not a pretty building, not a building that was useful. And you saw something. You had a desire to do some creation. You wanted to give back to the community. You wanted to make something. So the story of how you created, some folks know the story of how you did the Troy, but it was, you stripped it down. Can you talk a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about the co-working.
Yeah. So this place is my grandparents' store. Right? Think about it. You know, what did I didn't realize that until 2 years after I was here. And one night I was walking around, I was like, I just built my grandparents' store. That's what this is. Right? That's what this is. You know, there's commerce here, but there's connections, there's social, you know, and this is what's missing in neighborhoods now. You know, we can build all the buildings we want, but but we're missing connecting places. And this is a place for connecting. And this ties into, look, this is, I think, my greatest success. I talked to my greatest failure. My greatest success is who here okay. A friend of mine early on, a mentor of mine, when I met him first away, I sat down and said, "What's your superpower?" Where's Nemi? Where is he? Nemi is a mentor and friend of mine, a great ally. And when I first met him, he said, "What's your superpower?" I said, "What do you mean, like X-ray vision, or do you mean like flying?" Who here has a superpower? Raise your hand. I know Emily's got a lot of superpowers, by the way. She gets it.
Absolutely.
Who's got who? You got 4 people have superpowers. Everyone, put your hand in the air.
Everybody's got superpowers.
Everyone, raise
absolutely, absolutely. Everybody's got superpowers.
You all have a superpower. Okay. I figured out. He said to me, "What's your superpower?" I figured out what my superpower is. My superpower is connecting. That's it. That's my power. I can call right now. I could pick up my phone. I call 5,000 people. Real relationships. And if I needed to, within 2 phone calls, I can get to 50,000 people. You know, this is Facebook. I'm Facebook before Facebook. You know, 5,000 real friends, 5,000 real connections. That's my power, and that is what Gramercy was and is. That's how I started it. We connect our clients to the media. We connect our clients to each other. We connect our clients to business opportunities. We connect them to politicians. We connect. Right? Mm-hmm. And I learned how to do this as a 23-year-old kid working in Washington, D.C. for a congressman. And I learned that early on that I was like, how can I be successful? I'm not a policy wonk.
Right.
You know, I don't understand, to this day, I don't understand the budget or legislation. Like, that's not my thing. Right. So I was like, I'm out of luck if that's what I have to do, because I don't know how to do that. Right. I was like, how can I create worth? And then, you know, how to create value for myself how to create worth for my boss, and how to create value for myself if something happens. There's also self-preservation. Mm-hmm. And so I learned early on that it was through connecting people. If I could build up a network of people that I could connect for my boss, it would make me a superstar employee for him. Not that he needed it, but he needed some. I added to what was already there, 100 people back then maybe. And also being like, well, look, someday this job's going to end. What am I going to do next? In order to self-preserve, well, I need to know people. Mm-hmm. I read an article way back then about former President Bill Clinton. So Bill Clinton is famous for networking. Now, it's not the way I went about doing it, mm-hmm. but, every person he met, he created a note card. And on note card is person's name, and he would meet someone and say, who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? What's your interest? What are you going to do in your life? Blah, blah, blah. And literally, and then write down every detail he could. And he'd say, look, I'm Bill Clinton. I'm running for governor of Arkansas someday. I'm going to call you. Right? So it's very transactional. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I'm going to run for president. I'm going to need you. Well, fast forward 2017, I read an article. David Rockefeller, scion of the Rockefeller family, Chase Manhattan Bank. David Rockefeller died, and he had 100,000 note cards. And he had every meeting that he ever had with anyone on that note card. John F. Kennedy, the note card says, John F. Kennedy, in 1957, running for Congress. Actually, before that, running for board of something at Harvard. Father's Joe Kennedy. And then it goes on then. And at the top it says elected president. Married to Jackie Kennedy. No, see other card, Jackie Onassis. Has her own card. I mean, this is David. These are Rockefeller.
Right, right.
So I did that similarly. But I did in a way that was I hate transactional relationships, mm-hmm. right? It's just not who I am. But I set out to say, look, I'm going to build real relationships with as many people as I possibly can. And so there's a breadth too of that. So not just and I think people who are young, who are in politics, and there's some friends of mine here who are, don't make the mistake of just creating a connection in politics.
Right.
You know, that's a strong network. And a friend of mine said to me, I said, look, how many people do you think I know? He's like, dude, the legislative connections alone.
Right.
Thousands of people. Everyone who ever worked for a member of the assembly, you have something you can talk about.
Right.
You know, that is powerful. But then go beyond that. Then regionally. And now even I'm still developing beyond that. You know, I was on a phone the other day with a guy who was the senior vice president of Apple from 1987 to 1997. Imagine what's happened to Apple in that 10 years. A friend of a friend was like, you should call this guy because you're trying to do business across the state. He's someone you should know. It's amazing. I sat there. I literally was like, I all I did was ask him questions too.
Right.
What's about? You know, tell me your story. There's a couple people in the room. I could stand you up and I could tell you why you should know each other.
Right. Right.
And I always do that.
So it's not just being a connector, it sounds like, because again, back to I'm going to just go to an event and grab a bunch of business cards and yay, that's the victory.
No.
But it's really about creating relationships.
It's about relationships. I'm a relationship guy. I believe in relationships. I believe also too in interesting relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to have, you know, connections to people with a diversity of interests that aren't mine. You know, and I think that's a key to success.
Let's talk about being a community catalyst, because a lot of people, I would say there are probably people who could have taken some similar things in similar fashion that you've done. But when we talked and we did our pregame, what struck me was, you know, vocation plus passion equals community catalyst. It's not just, it was you bringing the real you, the very authentic you, which I think that in and of itself is so valuable today. And that's what I think really engages people is authenticity. But you just kind of were doing your thing. You weren't that guy that was like looking for, you know, notoriety per se. But you suddenly you've got this movement. This isn't just a co-working space. The Bull Moose Club is not just a co-working space. You've created a movement. I mean, I think the evidence is in this room. The people that are here, they're not here for Startup Grind. They're here to support you and to learn about you. So talk about that.
So I think that's a really good point and question. It ties together kind of like, you know, I'm at an interesting crossroads in my career right now. And I think I'm wise enough to understand that there's changes happening. You know, whereas maybe 10 years ago, in my 30s, I wouldn't see a change coming, but I could see it. I see it happening. And so I think when I started Gramercy, it wasn't about, I'm going to start Gramercy, I'm going to do transactions and make a bunch of cash as a business. It was never that. It was always like, I just did an early career in politics and government because I thought that's how you can make an impact. How can I make an impact still? And I was like, well, what if I had a company where I worked for cool companies? Instead of working for one politician, what if I worked for 20 interesting people and was able to help them do interesting things? So it was it's a service business. So I'm there to, you know, serve them.
Right.
And so that was that has been and still is today the driving force behind my PR company. I went down. I was pitching a client today actually, and I went down. And I said, look, we have worked out we work with the best clients. We're so lucky that we have such awesome people who are doing awesome things, right? And that we are able to select that. And I posted on Facebook, look, we have a no asshole rule. If you're a jerk, you're out of here. We don't got time for that, you know? And my people don't have time for that. And I want to support my people, and I don't want them to be exposed like that. So that's one, right? And the idea of community catalyst, I have always been growing up in a neighborhood, you know, growing up in an urban setting, watching a city change around me. You know, it's a company town, a big chemical plant, everyone worked there. I mean, this is a Richard Russo novel, you know, and life, and it changes. And what happens? People get laid off, you know, people start moving out, absentee landlords move in, you start seeing evolutions of urban life. My grandparents' store closes, you know, things like that have happened in every city around here. So I was always interested in that anyways, just from growing up, I think. And I started doing work in economic development as a broad topic. And I started to work for people who were building things, right? And I was like, you know what? I like that. Anyone who's building anything interesting, they should hire me. I was like, anyone who's doing something cool, I'm in. And I was going to find a way to get myself into those cool, interesting projects. I learned a little bit about economic development when I worked in New York City. You know, I worked in Lower Manhattan after 9/11. You know, I worked for the Lower Manhattan Business Improvement District. And so I learned at a really high level about complex commercial real estate, about the myriad of challenges, that red tape, government, et cetera, that people face. So I was able to really witness at a high level. And I worked for a guy who is he is the smartest guy I've ever worked for, smartest person I've ever worked for. And he said to me about himself, he goes, look, I'm a neighborhood builder. And I had never heard that before. Like, he builds neighborhoods. What's that mean? It means a lot. He doesn't build buildings. He builds neighborhoods. And he did. And he does. And he's famous for it. And it always stuck with me. And I was always like, I'm going to be a neighborhood builder. I want to do that. That's cool. That's a cool thing to be, And so when I moved to Troy, and I had, moved back upstate, I really want to be involved beyond just have my company here. And we were doing good, right? Gramercy's here. And look, I love Vic and I love Corey and I love the things they're doing. I always joke with them. I go, listen, no one heard about Troy till I moved my PR company here. No one's laughing because everyone knows that's not true.
It is. It's the power. It's the power of partnership. It's the power.
But we moved in here and we started pushing out Troy. Cool stuff. Awesome. And it was like, so I wanted to get involved beyond just having my employees here. Really getting involved. I became president of the bid board. I started working with people doing projects downtown. And then one of my friends said to me, I was like, dude, you're doing amazing stuff. It's great. Love it. He's like, well, when are you going to do something? I said, well, I'm doing something. What are you talking about? And I walked around. I said, I'm going to buy a building. And that's what this was. It was just like, I'm going to buy a building. This was going to be the Gramercy building, by the way. Isn't that weird? How stupid was that? That would have been awful. No one would come. No, but literally it was initially, I'm going to buy a building. Right. I want to make a stake. I want to make an investment. I want to do something down here. And I found this place, luckily, and the story behind this is a good one. So Jeff Buell is a good friend of mine. Everyone here knows Jeff. Some of you have gotten $100 from Jeff. He buys friends. I don't know if you know. Just kidding. But he's meant a lot to me too, and has helped me quite a bit. And actually, it was the guy. He was like, "What's your pro forma?" And I'm like, "Dude, what's a pro forma? I don't even know what you're talking about." The real estate people understand that you need a pro forma to get financing. So, I was thinking about what to do next. So this is a real quick story, and I've told this story a lot, but I was going to expand Gramercy, right? So I said, okay, look, either we can move to Boston and try to work in tech and health, biotech, because we were doing some biotech work. And so we started looking at WeWorks in Boston. Like, we can work over to WeWork and work and expand in Boston, in Buffalo. And I was like, I could buy a firm, maybe I'll buy a firm in Buffalo. And so I was thinking about, doing something like that, like Boston to Buffalo. And a Buffalo trip, look, no disrespect to Buffalo, but that's a long drive. It's boring. I mean, I used to be bored driving to Syracuse. The whole route to Buffalo, I was like, no way. There's no way I'm going to open up anything in Buffalo. It's so far. And so, but I went out there and I toured a bunch of projects and spaces. A lot of cool stuff happened in downtown Buffalo. And I went through 43 North, which is a startup, which is an accelerator program. And the whole ride back, I'm like, we need that in Troy. This is what we need in Troy. We need this. And I had been to WeWork and I had been to some other place. I'm like, this is what we need. I think Troy's ready for this. I called everyone I knew in real estate. I'm like, buy a building, do a co-working space. I got an idea, do a co-working space. And I was like, dude, I'm doing apartments, or I'm doing restaurants, or I'm doing this commercial thing. And Jeff was the one that said to me, I remember I'm calling, so I get to Amsterdam. He's like, stop calling me about the co-working stuff. He's like, why don't you do it? I was like, well, maybe I will. And I hung up the phone. I go, and by the time I got to Troy, I was like, I'm doing a co-working space. It's going to be called Troy Innovation Garage. It's going to be pink. 40 minutes, I had it figured out.
So we have the Troy Innovation Garage, and you stripped it. You did the work. It's like a part of you. Like you said, it's your, you almost recreated your grandfather's store in sense of community, and you absolutely did. But you were physically, building this thing. And it sounds like that's something that you really kind of invested, not Bull Moose. Bull Moose you didn't have that same sort of from the ground up. But again, you made it, it has its own distinctive personality. It's a very different vibe and a very different flavor from here. Talk a little bit about actually, before we leave the Troy area, talk about, you say you're always want to be involved in cool projects. What about the Marina project?
So this is also a good jet fuel crossover, right? So we could cross over our startup grinds. So I'm sitting in my office on River Street, and I'm watching these the Hurricane Irene had come, and Superstorm had wiped out the docks, and so there's no docks on the city waterfront, and for whatever whole bunch of circumstances, they never got replaced. So I'm sitting there looking out my window, I'm watching these yachts try to dock against the seawall. So I pick up the phone, I call Pete Ryan, who's the deputy mayor. I'm like, Pete, what's up with the docks, man? We got to have docks in the water. What's the plan for the city? And he goes, we're working on it. We got this plan, this plan. He goes, you know what? He goes, why don't you just do the docks? And I was like, I don't know about marinas, and what do I know about docks? So I was like, so I hung up, and I walk outside, and I'm looking at the waterfront. I'm like, could I do docks? Like, is that my calling? Like,
Is that your wheelhouse?
I had a boat at one point, so, and I went on it once, I think.
Who does that though? Who's like?
So I'm like, I can't do this by myself. And literally, who walks by? Jeff Buell. I'm like, come here, we got to talk. He's what? I go, look, I just talked to the deputy mayor. He wants us to do the docks.
He wants us to do the doc. The power of partnership. The power of partnership. That's awesome.
He goes, what do you mean? I go, the docks. He goes, yeah. He goes, he was just working on a slide and dirty building. He goes, all right, that sounds good. So we go to the city, and so we get the city to give us a contract to fix up and operate the docks. Now Jeff can't swim. He's never been on a boat. I didn't know this. We get out for the Times Union's in a photo shoot, and he's like so rickety on the. I go, what's wrong with you? Because I don't know how to swim. I go, well, you better not fall in the Hudson because it's no bueno if you go in. I'm not coming in after you, dude. So we did that for a year. Here's his famous line, which is the best. When people who know about it, and actually there's a really big real estate developer who I won't name, but Jeff and I had a meeting with him like the day after the Times Union ran like a front page story about us running the docks. We walk in the meeting together, and he's like, you two, with the docks. What is that? And he got it on the front page of the paper, But so Jeff's famous thing, he goes, look, we ran the docks. We didn't lose any money. No boat sank.
No lives lost.
So we did it for a year, and it was a public service to, for Troy. Let's get them up and running again. We turned it back to the city, and now there's a massive seawall project going on right now that eventually this will be. And we learned a lot. I learned a lot about the boating economy in the country. Actually, there's a lot of boats that come up through here, and I think that the city is well on its way to having a really cool project on the waterfront that's going to welcome massive amounts of boating traffic, throughout the course of the boating season.
So I definitely want to leave some time for folks to ask you questions. But before that, we got to go back to two things. Gramercy, briefly talk about, I don't know if you can even do it briefly, but I want to kind of come to what's next, and maybe that ties into Gramercy. Yeah,
so I think, and I said this today, a friend of mine, really good, Tim, always name drop him, but a friend of mine, Peter Gannon, really good friend, people know him here. He said to me today, he goes, dude, you're always, he said, he's like, you're always so humble about the things you work on, the things you do.
Very true.
He goes, because I was freaking out a little bit about this interview. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to say. What am I going to talk about? And he was like, think about it, man. Think about the things that you've seen and done and been through. And he's a friend who's been there since day one, by the way. First phone call I made, hey, I'm going to start this business. And so, Gramercy Communications is the best kept secret, public affairs firm in the state of New York. And we did it on purpose. It was like Ghost Protocol, Fight Club. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about the work we do, right?
Right.
And because, a lot of our clients require discretion, and the projects that require discretion. And we weren't there Gramercy was never about us. And so people who are starting to see my public profile raise, it wasn't until I started doing the garage that I really started putting myself out there. I didn't for years, for over 10 years. I was always low key behind the scenes, because it was all about the clients. It's all about Gramercy clients. But the track record of success and wins, it's phenomenal. It's like 5 years ago, I was like, what more can I do in terms of accomplishments for a firm? and this isn't and here's the other thing. It's like, you got to determine what your own success looks like. For me, success was never on a spreadsheet. I never set out to make success about, oh, what's that final thing say, or what's in the bank account. Success to me was about the wins for the work I was doing. And so that success. So like 5 years ago, I was like, I don't think I can. I think we did it. I think we won a Super Bowl. What are we going to do now? And we won a couple more Super Bowls.
Right.
And that to me is, and the thing that I did do though, 5 years ago, I stopped making it about me. It wasn't me and my team. I said, what's my new challenge? And my new challenge was, can I develop talent? Because I had never had employees. I wasn't HR. HR still not my thing. Nicole and I always get in trouble for HR issues, right? But I said to myself, my new challenge would be, can I develop people who work for me? Now, I'd always had an intern program. I'd always, give an opportunity. But, there's a few people who work for me now that I feel like I've really developed them. I've broke them down and retrained them and built them up and supported them and thanked them and, really made them stars and put them out. And they made themselves because they're talented. They deserve to be. But I've been like, look, I'm going to be able to. Now it's about them. Right. And I feel like Gramercy today it's about them. It's about the team. It's about what more can I do to help them. And that was like Gramercy 1.0 was like, everyone's here to help me do for the client, period. I have a job to do for this client. You're here in a auxiliary role, to help me help them. So it's different now. This is like Gramercy 3.0 now, right? We have an Instagram page. We're like, but Gramercy 3.0 is all about how do we let the team members do it, and even new team members who walk in the door. Where it used to be like, so now it's all about that. I do think there's a crossroads. I think I have to figure that out because look, I'm 35 hours a week in Gramercy. I'm 35 hours a week here. That's
a lot.
like 70 hours.
70.
But I work 12-hour days. I do 7 to 7. 6 to 6. So and then I try not to work on the weekends because I have young kids, and I'll come in for a couple hours here and there. But that's my work-life balance. And but it's something that has to give, because here's why: there's more opportunity doing this. And I'm getting calls, and I'm talking to interesting people, and I want to do more of this. I love this. This is a passion. I love Gramercy. It's still a passion. I love the people we do work for. So I wish someone here could tell me what to do. In a sense, like I'm at a point where I'm like, and I talk to a lot of people. I've to the point of like, I probably ask for too much advice sometimes, but I'm trying to 360 it. What do I have to do? But this, to me, regardless of whatever Gramercy is, I've always been happy with where it is, the size, the impact. It's in the annals of public relations firms in the history of the Capital Region. It's got its place. It's not first. Never want to be first. I want to be top 3. I think it's top 3 forever. I think we did that. Which is, and this isn't me. This is us.
Sure.
So I'm not crowing about me. I'm crowing about that.
Right.
But I want to do more of this. I want this. I want to do more spaces.
Right.
And now, look, I'm looking in other cities because.
Right. Which is exciting.
To me, I want to learn new things. I want to see new people, and I want a new challenge. So I think that's what's next. And I think I have some smart people around me who are trying to help me figure that part out.
Right.
And I think that's what I want to pursue.
Okay. So I'm going to go to questions, and then we're going to come back, and I'm going to want you to leave us with something. So who's got questions for Tom? Right there in the back.
So you do something very intangible. How do you price that for people? And like how do you turn that sort of like such a obscure intangible thing into
So even today, we have me and my senior team. We have conversations all the time about how hard it is to explain to people what we do. Right? Like, how can I tell people that we did? I don't want to say the things we do sometimes. Like, how can we tell people we did that thing? You can't tell people you did that thing, It's really based on hours, right? So it's based on time. It's a consulting. At the end of the day, Gramercy's a consulting business. So, I think what we do is we base on time. How much time will it take, to do a certain thing? And so, we require people, success or not, to pay for time. And so I think that's how we make it tangible, because we only have, certain amount of time in the year to work on all projects. And then here, different. How do we, this is a different type of, structure here where, it's people are members, in terms of, that's Gramercy, in terms of garage, people join. And how did I come up with the pricing? What's fair? A lot of this, by the way, and this right here, and this is the whole talk. Why it shouldn't take 5 years.
Right.
I mean, if I had this when I started, forget about it. I was gone. I would have been launched. But it took me 5 years to even know what day of the week it was. I was so just figuring it out, hard way.
Sure.
Going to networking meetings and being like, what am I doing? I got business cards. I don't even know what this is.
Right.
I had no sense of it. So I think that's what, and that's how we do this here.
Is that good? Who else has a question? Right there in the back.
What advice would you give someone my age?
How old are you? Okay. First of all, when you go to college, don't do what I did. That's the hard way. Show up. Here's the problem I had in college. I didn't show up. The lesson I learned from that failure was you got to show up. I got to show up to class. And I learned that throughout my life. You got to show up. You got an opportunity presented to you. Hey, come meet this person. Come go to this thing. You got to go. But when you show up, you'd never know where it could lead. You never know the path. The other thing is, don't get caught up in, what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do for a career? I would say don't get caught up in that. For the next 10 years, get caught up in experiences. Make sure you work, make sure you do internships, make sure you live in New York City, make sure you live in Washington, D.C., make sure you live in LA, whatever that experiences is, make the most of your 20s. And in your 20s, everyone in their 20s freaks out. Oh, I don't do this, I'm going to get married. No, just live your 20s. Don't feel like you got to do it all by the time you're 29.
Other questions? Right there in the back.
What's a recent mistake you've made that's been a game changer for you? Turn around and learn something.
So when I bought this building, I literally thought that I would just build it myself in my spare time. And I remember the day that I walked the guy through who was going to rent me dumpsters. And is a great guy, and I'm on his Christmas card list because I said, what do you think, 15 dumpsters? It's 15 dumpsters? 15 dumpsters for the tile ceiling. It's 115 dumpsters. $350 a dumpster. I mean, so what I learned here was a lot of mistakes, and big mistakes in here, big time mistakes throughout this process. Literally, freak out, I'm dead. This is it. It's over. We did a time-lapse camera in here of all the construction. And the woman who worked for me who pulled it together, she goes, there's hours of footage of you just standing in the middle of the room, staring in space. The budget for this project was $400,000. Why was it $400,000? Because I was yeah, it's going to cost $400,000 to do it. I didn't ask anyone, right? People who know, I have real estate friends. Because they were dude, it's going to cost you $800,000. I'm you're crazy. I'm going to do it for half the cost. I'm going to do it myself. My buddies are going to come in on Saturday. We're going to whack it out. Well, the project cost $1 million. Okay? So I had a loan for $400,000. There is a funny story in this with my wife. Okay? Look, my wife is very organized. She's an attorney. She's a corporate attorney. And she's very steady and stable when it comes to, certain things. And, I got to the point where, listen, I'm out of money. I don't have money like that. That's the other thing here. Is like people will say to me today, like, "Oh, I wish I had your money." Like, dude, my first client for Gramercy paid me $80. It was a $330. I looked at it was $330, but after expenses, it was $80 is what I made. So to get to that point where the bank actually would give you a loan, and so I got a loan for $400,000. I needed $600,000. I had good friends that kicked in. You know, one of my best buddies growing up works at Amtrak. He's like, hey, you got this project, I got a couple bucks. If you're looking for investors, I was like, dude, I'll take it. I'll pay you interest. I took some money like that. But I was like $50,000 short, and I hadn't asked my wife for money. And so I went to Ann and I said, hey, listen, I want your advice on something. Listen, I'm all about foot in the door techniques, door in the face techniques, all those things you learn in 101 psychology. She's smarter than that, though. But so I went there. I said, look, I need like 50 grand. I got a guy. He owns a bunch of dry cleaning businesses. He's got some cash. He wants to put into the project. She's like, hey, dry cleaning guy? Who is this guy? What are you talking about? She says, why don't you just take the money from me? I'm like, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's great.
Once again, the power of partnership.
I didn't have a dry cleaning guy, by the way. I just made that up. But anyways, so I think what I learned, look, experts. I have friends that are experts. I should have just asked them. Part of it was like fearful. Like I didn't want to seem like I don't know what I'm doing. I think that part of it is, well, look, I'm just going to do it. I probably know a little better how to do it. Maybe I'm going to have my friends do it. I'm going to do it myself. You can't do it. You can't do this yourself. So that's a great question. Thank you for that.
We're going to take one more question because we can still network a bit after.
Have you seen any co-working spaces that accommodate children, or can any co-working space accommodate children, parents?
I have a conversation about that once every 3 weeks. No doubt. I talk about it a lot. And it's something that could and should and does happen. The one thing I want to add, though, in terms of it's a good point in terms of like how this got built. So yeah, it's my energy, creativity. We had really talented people that helped us design it. And then a lot of my own freestyle in here. This right here was like, this guy, Benny, was like, I was like, dude, can we do something with this old sheet metal ductwork? He's like, yeah, about like a metal wall. That's what all this was. All the wood in here is reused from the building. All these things, that thing up there, that's not even a real structure. That little chain thing, that was on the back of the building. So everything in here is reused, recycled, redone. So I went and toured while I was designing this. I went and looked at 50 spaces around from Chicago to Miami, to the point where it was like, okay, enough with the travel. It was a lot. But I wanted to see all I could. And as the architects were laying it out, I said, don't do any drawings till I get back from Miami. I want to tell you what I see when I go to this place in Miami. And so I would bring back, I assembled what I thought were the best ideas from these spaces, and I scaled them for here, okay? That's an idea I've seen that I think is fantastic. I think that it has to be, we're probably a little small market to do it here, but I think that that's a co-location thing, no doubt about it. It would help us so much, and it would help parents so much. And being a father of two little kids, I get it. It'd be so nice if I could be like, oh, I'm gonna drop my kids off next to or in our space. And by the way, I still visit co-working spaces because I don't think, and this is a little bit of a brag, but this space is as cool as any place I've seen in the country. No doubt about it. Other places are bigger. I've been to Boulder, I've been to Chicago, I've been to Miami, New York, Boston. This is as cool as anything I've seen. I went to Boulder, last summer. We were in Miami again over the winter. So I'm always looking and trying and seeing and making sure that we're keeping up and staying ahead of the curve.
Okay, one more question. Is there one more question in the house? Oh boy, I guess we got two more questions. I'm gonna take this one and then I'll go back over there. Go right ahead.
What do you think is the most fulfilling thing about walking in this room every day?
So a lot of times I don't even think about it, And so I've had friends of mine be like, dude, this is amazing. You own this. How cool is that? And I don't even think about it. It's like going in your house. You don't really sit there and think about, oh, I own this house. It's just So I think a lot of times I don't, but once in a while I catch myself. Two things. I think one is the energy, right? So how do you build energy? And I think that there's a feel when you come in here that it's good, positive, big energy. It's good energy. I think that to me is like super rewarding that I was able to actually do it, because I walked into spaces that had terrible energy, and I walked into spaces that had brilliant energy. And I was like, I hope I can build a place that is energized. And Bull Moose Club is energized too, even though it's different. So I was able to build two places that have a lot of good energy. So I think that's good. Some of that comes from good staffing, right? And so, having the right people in the building, working on it, caring about it, loving the members, dealing with the members, that is critical, And so, Nicole, raise your hand. Francesca, where are you? I mean, this is the A-team. I got so lucky that I was able to find two amazing women like this. Thank you both.
Awesome.
They deserve it. So, but the other thing, this is the thing that's really gratifying. I always thought building this, look, this will be great because people will connect. I'm a connector, right? But how do you can't force that. So you can a little bit. There's one coffee station. There's one place to get beer. If you want whiskey, you got to ask. So we designed it for collisions, right? So it's designed to make collisions. But when I see, here's the other part that is part of this. So owning Gramercy for 10 years, look, and you'll hear this from entrepreneurs, it's a lonely life, right? There's a lot of lonely times. It's a common thing with entrepreneurs. You'll hear this over and over again. And look, I'm surrounded by a million people, but it gets lonely in a sense. And with the Gramercy years specifically, it's me and my employees. They're great. I have great relationships. At the end of the day, they're my employees. So you can only build a relationship so far with employees. So to have this place there's no employees here. It's all peers. These are other business owners. So now you can build and cultivate relationships beyond the employee-employer relationship. And to watch people not only connect and do business, it's not even about that. In a sense, we don't want people to do business together because, look, the business deal is going to get messed up, and then we don't want people dating. It's going to mess up. It's going to be weird. So but be friends. And to watch people make friendships here, that to me is super gratifying. And I've met so many I have cool friends I've met here, This guy, I'm reading his book. He's a New York Times best-selling author. Guy walked in on his e-bike one day, and just super cool.
So hey, Tom, it doesn't sound like you have enough to do, so I wanted to see what else may be coming up after this, your aspirations beyond Troy and what you've done in Albany. There are other areas that you're looking to tackle or other ideas that you want to expand on?
It's a great question. So one of the things I did, Paul, and you'll appreciate this because you're very involved and always giving, is I got off of all kind of volunteer activities. I got so busy that I was like, look, I can't. And when people ask me all the time, will you be on this board? Are you on this committee? And I honestly say to them, listen, I'd love to do it, but I'm probably not going to show up. So I don't want to do it. And that's happened to me where I got involved and I didn't show up. And then, you feel guilty because you didn't show up. So I kind of got away from that side of my life. And I miss that, though. I miss that. I miss the boys club. I miss being involved with different charities, and stuff like that. So I think probably a little bit of what I'm trying to do is, as things settle out, I'd like to pick and choose a couple, volunteer activities I can get involved with that have nothing to do with business, but that just are good deeds. So I'd like to do that. And I think that what really is which is the future for me is, we're actively pursuing deals in two markets right now outside the area. We're waiting to hear back what those deals might look like. And look, I haven't fully talked about this, but can I do 2 more spaces? And then how about the year after that? Can I do 8? Can I have 20? So I got to go through that whole process of, could I be the guy that owns 20 co-working spaces, all around the Northeast? Maybe. There's a lot to learn, though. I can't get it from the dry cleaning guy. I have to learn about investment and venture capital, stuff like that. That's next.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I just want to say thank you, Tom. I knew we were going to have a blast. I knew we were going to have a good time and have a lot of fun. And thank you, every single person that's in this room, because we really couldn't do what we're doing tonight if you guys were not here and supporting. And, Startup Grind, we're here tonight because Troy Innovation Garage is the flagship of the co-working spaces, but we are doing this at the Bull Moose Club every month. So we have another event coming up on the 24th of April. And we have Anthony Constantino, who you talked about best kept secrets. His company, Sticker Mule, is one of the best kept secrets in our region. He does not do interviews. I really had to almost resort to violence to get him to agree. He'll do podcasts and he'll do written articles, but he's going to be with us on the 24th. So you want to, Sticker Mule is the one of the most popular online printing companies. They do die-cast prints and things of that nature. But he's just this really neat guy. He's really young, but he's a factory-based guy at heart. And his goal is basically to create exceptional experiences for all of his customers and for his team. So if you want to learn about creating some really great things for your customers and also about some team and culture, if you didn't get enough of it here, then come see us on the 24th at the Bull Moose Club. Thank you to Francesca, who always makes it seamless. And thank you to Nicole. You also made this amazing. And so we're going to, hang out for a while here. So I know sometimes folks don't want to ask questions in an open setting. But just thank you so much for being here, my amazing videographer, Ken. So thanks. I think we are where we need to be. So thanks.
Patrice. I just want to say thank you, to you for having me do this. And, you're a special talent, and I look forward to doing some other stuff with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I want to say, too, to everyone who came tonight, it means a lot. It's really humbling, and I really, really appreciate you coming out. And there's a lot of familiar faces. There's new faces. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.